Hi, Beth Redmond here. Welcome to Sound and Vision. We have a new episode for you, so we hope you'll stick around and enjoy the show.
You say you love me, say you love me all of the time, all of the time. You say you need me, say you need me. You'll always be mine, always be mine. And I'm feeling that all over, oh, yes I'm that all over, baby I'm that all over. So glad you're mine. I'll make you happy. You'll never be blue, never be blue. Because it's love now, because it's all.
Good evening, Cambridge viewers, and welcome to Women Speak, the women's show here on Cambridge Live TV. My name is Tess Ewing, and I'm your host the first Wednesday of every month, when we talk about issues having to do with women and work. And today we're going to be talking about an agency, I guess it's an agency, organization?
A commission.
A commission that has done a lot of important work helping out Massachusetts working women, and that is the Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women. And I am delighted to be able to have as my guest today one of the commissioners, actually an officer of the commission, the secretary of the commission, Nina Kimball, who, as I said, she's one of the commissioners, and she is a lawyer. She is one of the founding partners of a law firm, Kimball and Russo, right. Which specializes in employment law and has done a lot of work around issues of women and work. And Nina actually was one of the people who drafted the Massachusetts Equal Pay Act, which just
the amendments to the statute, which just passed last year and goes into effect next year.
And who knew that we didn't have this already? You know, it's against the law to discriminate against women in hiring and firing and everything else, as we all know. But it turns out that under the old statute, it was very hard for a woman to actually prove a case, and so with the new law, it's going to take care of a lot of that. So
yes, thank you.
Welcome, Nina. I'm very happy to have you on the show.
Thank you, Tess. It's nice to be here. Thank you for inviting us, and for me to be able to talk about the work of the commission. Well,
it's so important for people to know what the commission does and how it can help them.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about what is the commission exactly, and what's its mission, and how does it accomplish its mission?
So the Commission on the Status of Women is a statewide organization. It was started in 1998 after the 4th International Conference on Women in Beijing, where one of the things that people realized is that there needed to be more commissions across the United States working on women's issues. So it was founded in '98. And right now it is we have 19 commissioners. We're all volunteers as commissioners, and we are brought from all over the state. The people on the commissions, we represent all different areas of the state, and it's a diverse body in terms of racial, religious, LGBTQ commissioners. And the mission of the commission is to enhance opportunities for women and girls in Massachusetts. And we do that in a lot of different ways.
Okay. For example?
Well, for example, the commissioners are appointed by some by the Senate President, the Speaker of the House, the Governor, and the Caucus of Women Legislators.
Oh.
And we hold 4 public hearings a year, and then and among other things that we do is at the end of the year, we report back to our appointing authorities about information that we learn from women across the Commonwealth about issues that affect women.
So what are these hearings exactly?
So we have 4 a year, and we make sure to hold them all over the state.
Okay.
For example, they recently held hearing in North Adams.
That's
all over the state. This year, our first hearing is going to be out at Westfield State University, which is, past Springfield.
Yeah.
And we're going to have one on the Cape. We're going to have one in Lowell, and I think New Bedford. Okay. So, and at the public hearings, they're open to the public. Anyone can come and speak. They're often held in the libraries, in a town, or maybe at a college or university. And we get in touch with organizations that are in the community, like the YWCA, our regional commissions. We also have commissions on the status of women across the state in different regions. And we get in touch with various organizations to get the word out and say, if you want to come and speak at the public hearing, please come. And then we set up in whatever the organization is, people sign in. If they want to speak, they put their name on a list, and then they go to the microphone one after another and just talk about issues that affect them. And some of the stories you hear are just heartbreaking. People talk about housing insecurity, food insecurity, transportation problems, issues with drugs. One woman at one of the hearings we had last year talked about the difficulty of caring for an adult children with Alzheimer's. So the issues go on, and then what we do is we're taking information to find out what's going on in the communities, but we also sometimes have resources. For example, there will be a state rep or a state senator who is at the hearing, and in fact on this issue of Alzheimer's, one of the state senators there was able to tell this person, this mother, about some resources for families who have Alzheimer's, in there.
Yeah.
So we can connect people to resources, but we do a lot of listening. And then
So basically, these are very open-ended, these hearings. It's basically just come and say anything that affects you as a woman in the state.
Right.
This is where to bring your issue.
That's right, exactly.
Okay.
Anyone can come. Anyone can talk about whatever issue is important. The hearings last 2 hours, and we really are, trying to give everybody in the room who wants to have the chance to come up and speak. And then we take notes, because we do, in our report to our appointing authorities, we do cap and summarize all of the hearings and the issues that have been, brought to us.
Yes.
Then with that information, it can inform some of the things we do as a commission, such as legislative priorities. What bills that are in the legislature do we want to support as to advocate, to give testimony, to try to gather people and gather support for. We have an advocacy day each year at the State House, and we bring hundreds, literally. Let me see, 2 years ago, we had about 250 women from across the state who came to the State House on our advocacy day to talk to their members, their state reps and their state senators about legislation that was important, that could help them in their communities. But last year, we had over 400 people. And on one day.
Wow.
Good
for you.
And it was, and it ranges from high school students from, I think, Fall River. They came up in a whole bus.
Yep.
From one of their regional commissioners brought them. We may have students, we may have our regional commissioners, and then lots and lots of people who want to meet with their state reps and state senators and talk about what's going on in their community and how is the legislation that we are supporting potentially helpful to try to encourage people to pass it. That's one thing we do.
So you look at what legislation has already been filed and you decide what you're going to support.
Right.
Do you ever initiate legislation? Do you decide, well, this would be a good thing to legislate and find somebody in the general court to
do that? As a matter of fact, we do sometimes. And one big success that we worked on and that I personally worked on was the amendments to the state Equal Pay Act.
Yeah.
And this effort started in 2014.
Okay.
And I actually, with another attorney, Deborah Benson, at the time we started a task force at the Women's Bar Association to come up with a comprehensive equal pay bill, because our statute wasn't working and the legislative efforts to try to amend the statute weren't working. And in this effort, we contacted the Commission on the Status of Women.
Okay.
And we worked with the executive director of the commission, we worked with the chair at the time, and we also worked with Mass Now, and those three organizations, the commission, the Women's Bar Association, Mass Now, formed something called the Equal Pay Coalition. And in that, we drafted a new bill that looked at a very comprehensive approach to trying to close the gender wage gap here in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And I was one of the authors. I wasn't one of the only authors. There were a few other people who worked on it. But this commission really took an advocacy role to form this Equal Pay Coalition, which ended up getting about 50 organizations became members of the coalition
Excellent.
that advocated at the State House. I worked with the Attorney General. I ended up working with members of the legislature, and it was a lot of efforts. Many, many, many people were involved in this. But the result was back last year in August of 2016, August 1st, Governor Baker signed the new law, which is one of the most comprehensive equal pay bills in the country.
I would expect nothing less of Massachusetts.
Massachusetts has been a leader.
But I guess we weren't on this issue until now.
Well, you know, we led in other things. Actually, Massachusetts had the first equal pay law in the country in 1945.
45, yes.
In 1945, we had the first one.
I knew about that.
Yeah.
I just didn't know it didn't work.
So, well, it worked, I think, for a while, but then it was about 10 years ago that our state Supreme Judicial Court really gutted the law. And that's what we needed to fix. But now that we fixed it, we now have many more tools that can be used to try to close the gender pay gap in the workplace.
Yeah.
And some of those are, for example, I'm an employment attorney. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I will have women who will come to my office and they think they're not being paid the same as their male peers,
Right.
but they don't necessarily know. And so if you don't know if you're underpaid, what can you do
You
about
can't
it?
do anything about it. Well, that's what the whole Lily Ledbetter case
That's
was about.
right, exactly.
On the federal level.
Yeah, that's right. And the statute of limitations in the Lily Ledbetter case. And so one of the things that we wanted was to bring something called pay transparency to our statute. Because employers have handbooks, for example, that say compensation is confidential. Or you might sign, some kind of agreement saying you're not allowed to discuss your compensation with your coworkers. So then how do you know if you're being underpaid? So one of the things in this bill says that employers can no longer have confidentiality policies that would discipline somebody who talks about their pay
Excellent.
or asks a coworker about their pay. So that's a very important thing in our bill.
Some of us who worked in either with union contracts or in the public sector don't realize how important that is.
That's right.
Because our salaries are general knowledge.
That's right, exactly.
But for much
Yeah.
of the private sector, that's not the case.
Exactly, and instead, I have a case right now of a woman who thought she was underpaid, she didn't really know, and so then you have to file a lawsuit to end up getting the pay of your coworkers. And that's not a great way to find that out. And
Well,
so,
not only that, but I imagine it takes quite a while, and then you have a statute of limitations. to
exactly,
worry
a lot of things you have to worry about. So putting that in actually can also help. It helps people to get information so they can advocate for themselves and actually avoid litigation. Another thing that is brand new in Massachusetts was the first one to pass this, is to tell employers that they cannot use salary history in the hiring process.
Oh, yes.
So, and Massachusetts is the first state that ever passed that provision.
But that's so important, because if women come in with having been paid less in the past, and they take that into account in setting their salary, then obviously it perpetuates.
Exactly, it perpetuates it. So we did that, and after Massachusetts passed that provision, now lots of other states and municipalities are passing those laws.
Oh,
so that's
good
a
for
new one. Another thing we did is we extended the statute of limitations, so you had more time. And then we also have a provision that encourages employers to look at their pay practices and to evaluate them. And if they find pay discrepancies and they change those or take efforts to end the wage gap, they get a defense if someone brings a claim.
I see.
And that
Yeah.
enables them to, it's like a best practices.
Yeah.
So all of those are important tools. And the commission played a very important role in drafting that bill, advocating for the bill, getting support for it, and getting it passed. So that was a great thing to see happen.
Well, that does sound like a real deal. So what else? What other legislation are you backing at this point?
Right.
And let's not spend the whole time on legislation
Yeah,
because you do
right.
other things too.
So because I'm an employment attorney, the things that I particularly have been working on with the commission do include the workplace, things that are happening in the workplace. So one of the bills that we supported and that was just passed is the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act.
Okay.
So that
Sounds
is
good.
so yeah, that is a law that closes a sort of a loophole in our statute. So when I first saw this law, I thought, why do we need this? I thought we already did this. But in Massachusetts, if you are pregnant and if you have a medical condition, like for example, high blood pressure,
Right.
and you need some kind of an accommodation at work. Maybe
Right.
you need some rest. You need to be able to sit down on a
Yes.
stool, or you need frequent water breaks. If you are disabled by your pregnancy and the medical condition, your employer has an obligation to give you an accommodation, a reasonable accommodation.
Yeah.
But what if you're not disabled?
Yes.
That was the problem. So let's say you have a woman who's pregnant, healthy pregnancy, but she's getting swollen ankles and she's very tired and she would like to be able to sit down and maybe you have a stool to sit on.
There is a stool law in Massachusetts.
A stool law.
There is a law that you can have a seat if you
seat.
If you can. But
So the problem was that women who are healthy, a healthy pregnancy, had no
didn't have
rights to an
under the
accommodation.
ADA. Yes.
And there was I actually had a client who was pregnant and who actually, because of what her employer was making her do in terms of working with toxic chemicals and heavy cleaning, actually lost a baby and had a miscarriage. And one of the people who testified at the State House experienced something where she was she worked in a laundry, a medical laundry, and she pushed very heavy carts and she packed the carts and everything. And when she got pregnant, instead of them lightening her work, they gave her more and more work. And at 19 weeks, she experienced a miscarriage.
Wow.
And she had no rights to be accommodated because she was not disabled by any kind of a medical condition. So this law says that pregnant employees, whether you're disabled or not, if you need an accommodation, you may need to get your doctor to write you a note. So it's things like light duty, frequent bathroom breaks, being able to take a rest, maybe a transfer to a less demanding position, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And that law was just signed in July by the governor, and it takes effect next April. And so
Excellent.
it's a great law.
That's good.
I'm
Yeah.
happy about that. But there are some things we do that are not legislation.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of them. We are just starting an effort with the Treasurer's Office to do training, salary negotiation trainings across the state to help women learn how to negotiate a salary. Because one of the things I've learned in my many years as an employment attorney is that women are not good at negotiating. And they're happy to get a job.
at that. I'm quite good at negotiating myself.
Well, Tess, you may not need the train. Maybe you could be a trainer.
Okay.
Okay, you could be the trainer.
But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. We don't usually stick up for ourselves.
Right. Right. And these are women, entry-level positions, mid-career.
We don't even know that we're supposed to do that.
Exactly. High level. I mean, women executives who are often just happy to get the job, happy to get the promotion. I heard a story of a woman who had just gotten a fellowship, and she's in the STEM field, and the other fellows, they all went out to dinner to celebrate getting the fellowship. All the other fellows were men. And the first thing they talked about was how much they were paid for their fellowship, because the men had negotiated the amount of money, and she had never even thought of it.
She just took what they gave her.
Happy to get the fellowship.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's something that we're going to be working with our regional commissions across the state.
Okay.
And finding, commissioners to become trainers to help train people about this. It's a program that the Treasurer's Office is doing with the AAUW, the American Association of University Women.
Mm-hmm.
They have the training for salary negotiation. And we're going to help with our regional commissions to find people in places around the state to bring that program.
That sounds great.
Yeah. They're already doing it in Boston. Boston already is doing this. So that's something we're doing too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hearings, legislation. You mentioned that you have interns.
We have interns. We have, I think we have 6 interns this fall. And we have, they may be college-age students, and you know, if you come as an intern, you can work on some of our legislative priorities, work on our public hearings, travel across the state, help, you know, in just some of the job of the communications with our liaisons on our regional commissions and other things. We help do a wonderful program we do once a year that's called Unsung Heroines.
Okay.
And that is just a fabulous program, and our interns help with that, where once a year a member of the legislature gets to nominate a woman in their district who has just done some kind of wonderful community service or something that, you know, maybe nobody's necessarily giving them credit for. And we bring those people to the State House, and we had over 200 of them this year.
Okay.
And we honor them. Oh my gosh.
Does every legislator nominate someone?
They have the opportunity to.
Okay.
So they all have the
Some
opportunity.
do, some
Some
don't.
do, some maybe haven't gotten it through, but we had over 200, and they are honored at the State House. Their members are often there, and we read everyone's name, tell a little bit about what they do. We have a reception, but it's just a way of bringing people in, you know, women around the Commonwealth who are just doing, you know, unbelievable stuff for that is
And
just
not
helping
many people don't.
The
are
people
aware
don't
of
know.
it.
So that's a nice program that we do as a way of just recognizing people. And then sometimes those people get involved in other ways. They sometimes become regional commissioners or, you know, other things.
So there are regional commissions, and I know,
Right.
for example, Cambridge has a city commission. Is that related
Right.
or is that separate?
The city commissioners are not related to our commission.
Okay.
So Cambridge has one, Melrose, Worcester, a lot of them have one.
Okay.
Our regional commissions are either counties,
Okay.
like Bristol County, Hampden County, Hampshire
Yep.
County, or Metro West.
Okay.
And there are regional commissions across almost all the state. There are still 3 regional commissions the bills are in the legislature to try to get them passed now. One for Plymouth, one for Upper Middlesex, and then sort of Eastern Mass around Boston and other places. But the regional commissions, we appoint the commissioners. And
the state commission
Yes.
appoints the regional
Right.
commissioners.
Yeah, we appoint the regional commissioners. We just swore in new commissioners for Hampden and Hampshire County last year.
That's nice.
And they all know each other, and they are all doing wonderful work out there already on various, you know, nonprofit boards and other things. And then those regional commissions are in touch with, you know, a lot of issues that are happening really on the ground in the communities. And then they report to us, we meet with them, and they are a great way for us to get in touch with what's going on in the state. They help us with our public hearings and
So I
other
was going to
things.
say that they must really help you when you go out and they must help bring people together to come to your
Absolutely.
hearings to
Yes.
find out about them. And
Exactly, right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So, and it's just a way that, I mean, our mission is to enhance opportunities across the state, and our regional commissions can help to find out what's going on, what are the needs, how can we help, you know, what can be done, to advocate for legislation, to just, you know, initiate things. We also can make appointments, or we can not make, well, we appoint our own commissioners, but we can make recommendations for appointments. So there are a lot of ways that, and it's sort of an open, you know, if you see an idea, you can try to make something happen.
so if somebody has, if a woman in Cambridge, just for example, maybe you know, has some issue that they think is important for women in Cambridge, or maybe is working on a piece of legislation that they think is relevant to women, should they contact the commission?
We would love to hear from someone, anyone. We would love to have people contact us. You can contact us by email to the commission, which is mcsw at, I think it's ma.state.us. I'm going to look it up and make sure I have the right. So it is mcsw at state.ma.us. That is our email. We're putting the telephone number and the address up on the
that
screen.
telephone number,
617-876-0055.
is that your number? There's something
Where
number
did that
that's
come
been
from?
there. I think
No,
your
okay.
number is 617-626-6520.
That's right. That's
This
the
is-
number of the commission. I don't know what
Watch
that
that
number is
little-
on the screen.
Yeah, it's this one here.
So no, we absolutely, we welcome input, we welcome ideas from people. A lot of the work that we do is to listen, to get feedback, to find out what's going on from women and girls across the Commonwealth. So you can go on our website and you can actually, send an email, and that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know why they don't have the email up there, but they should, really. So I noticed that they have the address there too. Is the office open on office hours? Is there any reason to come in?
Yeah, well, there is the address. It's in one of the state office buildings at 19 Stanford Street, and there's staff there. We have an executive director, Jill Ashton, who is phenomenal. Jill and she's been there with the commission for many, many years and she's got great history in terms of what's going on. She is a wonderful leader. And then we have our interns, and we have a couple of staff members. So, so people could show up, you can write an email, you can get on the website, you can make a call.
So give that email one more time.
So the email,
since we don't have it.
So the email is mcsw@state.ma.us.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Well, Tess, thank you for having me. It's been really nice.
The Mass Commission on the Status of Women, folks, get in touch with them. They do some great work.
Thank you.
And now, next month, I'm going to be interviewing a Cambridge nurse and president of the Massachusetts Nurses Association, Donna Kelly Williams. So come on back next month at the same time. And meanwhile, have a great month, and thank you again.
Thank you, Tess. And thank you to everyone who's tuning in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Until then. My goodness, we stopped on time.
Hey, that's
unusual.
Well, thank you, because I hope that this is going to do something to get people to know something about the commission.
Hopefully it will.
Yeah.